Welcome to today's video. This is all new to me, so bear with me, but I wanted to tell you guys just a few things that I think is interesting. So the first thing I want to talk about is the respiratory system. Some few things that I think are really cool about the respiratory system that are just kind of fun that I'm going to share with you. Just some facts to get you guys thinking. If you were to take the surface area of the lungs, it would roughly be the size of a tennis court. So the surface area of your lungs is pretty big. And that's with all of the alveoli and where the gases exchange. We don't just breathe out carbon dioxide, we actually breathe out water as well. That's why you can see your breath when it's cold outside. Lungs are the only organ that can float in water. We actually yawn because of a lack of oxygen, and the brain signals your body to take a deep breath. That's what happens when you yawn. So I was thinking about this and asked the question, why are yawns contagious? And it's because our brains see someone else yawn, and our brains think they're getting more oxygen than we are, so we hurry and yawn so we can get more oxygen too. It's pretty funny. And last thing is, your left lung is actually smaller than your right lung. And if you think about this logically, it makes sense because your left lung has to make room for your heart. So those are some respiratory system facts that I wanted to share with you guys. I know we looked at the cow diagram in class, so I decided to do the pig today. But we're going to go ahead and look at the respiratory system, and then we're going to jump into the nervous system real fast. So let's take away some of these other body parts. Oh, digestive system, having a struggle. Okay, so here's just your respiratory system. You guys should have already learned about this and everything. You can see nasal cavity, and it goes into, whoa, sorry, struggling. If I can get it to turn, there we go. Bear with me here. Alright. You have your trachea. This is where your voice box is, or your pharynx. You have your lungs. But the one thing I really wanted to show you guys is right here. So this is your diaphragm. And it looks kind of funny, but it is just a muscle that helps you breathe. If you were to get stabbed or shot and a hole punctured through your diaphragm, you would likely still be able to breathe, but it would be very difficult because all of your intestines would enter into your chest cavity where your lungs are, and they would have less room to inflate and deflate. Now, when your diaphragm, that's if you had a hole in it. If your diaphragm actually detached, from the wall, you would not be able to breathe because it doesn't create that vacuum effect, which is pretty crazy. So, there's a little bit about the respiratory system that maybe you didn't know before. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about the nervous system just real fast. A couple of things that weren't on the PowerPoint that I want you guys to know about. Now, this PowerPoint looks just a little bit different than yours, but it has the same information. But like I said, there's a couple of things that I want to make sure you guys know about the nervous system and the endocrine system. The endocrine system has to do with your brain, so we learned about both of those things. In here you talked about how there's a function, and then you talked about the different types of nerves, like sensory nerves and motor and receptors, all of those good things that we talked about. But what I want you guys to know is that, so all nerves, it says right here that all nerves are connected, and that is true. There's a little part of inside your neurons. So all of those little nerves, there's a little part called an axon. It's spelled A-X-O-N, and that is responsible for transferring messages. So when you touch something, all of those axons are transferring the message that to your brain that you're touching something. So for example, if you touch the stove, those axons would send the message that you should take your hand away because it's really hot. There's actually a little space in between neurons that's called a synapse, spelled S-Y-N-A-P-S-E. And they have that little gap just for transferring messages and things like that. So that's pretty cool. As we go on, we talked about the spinal cord is connected to the brain. We're going to look at that here in just a second on our pig diagram. And it looks pretty cool. And we talked about, you guys learned about all of the different parts of the brain. Cerebrum is the largest. When you think of a brain, you're probably thinking more of the cerebrum. That's the thing that people always draw, is this part of the brain right here, the wrinkly part. And you have the right and the left hemisphere. And the left hemisphere has to do with speech and comprehension and arithmetic, writing, all of those kind of skills. And the right is your creativity, artistic, musical skills all come from the right. So sometimes you've heard if you're right-brained or left-brained, that's what they're talking about. The cerebrum also deals with touch and vision and hearing, speech, reasoning, emotions, learning, and in the cerebrum has a whole bunch of different parts of the brain that handle all these different things that we're not going to get into very deep, just so you know. But that's the cerebrum. Now, this one over here is called the cerebellum. That's how you say that, cerebellum. And it controls muscle movements, posture, balance, large motor skills. In charge of like voluntary movements, so movements that you want to control. So throwing a ball or walking or kicking or things like that. So that's your cerebellum. That's this little part right here. Whoa. Next you have the medulla oblongata, which is this kind of odd looking one, but it controls involuntary activities such as breathing, heartbeat, and digestion, right? When you undergo surgery, like brain surgery, people who have brain surgery, the part they're most worried about is this here, medulla oblongata. And the reason why is because it controls those involuntary actions, things that you can't reteach, like heartbeat or digestion, breathing, something that you do, subconsciously. That's what we're talking about with the medulla oblongata. So when surgeons are working on the brain, they are very aware of where the medulla oblongata is because it's the hardest to repair. Like I said, it's like the unteachable part of the brain because it controls functions that are involuntary that we don't have to think about, that our brain just does for us. So, pretty cool. The brain stem connects to the spinal cord. That's where the nervous system all meet together and control all the things that we do. Alright, so let's look at the nervous system on our pig real fast. Let's just get it all back together. So we have this piggy. Okay. Now we're going to take away your muscles, skeleton. We went through that. We're going to take away that respiratory system that we just talked about. We've talked about the circulatory system. We're going to be talking about the digestive system and the reproductive system here in a little bit. But here we have our nervous system. So you can see that we have the brain right here, and the eyes are actually considered part of the nervous system because they attach to your brain, and they take in sensory using sight. So you see all of these, stop it for just a second, all of these right here, I mean they have names, you guys don't need to know these names, but all of these are nerves, but I want you guys to notice that they all come back to the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the link to the brain. That's why when you break your back, it's a big deal. because you can damage a lot of things. For example, when you have like paralysis, you may have, you can't feel your legs, or you don't have the use of your legs. Your legs don't actually have anything necessarily wrong with them. They are not broken. They could still function. Really, the problem lies in the spinal cord. So somewhere in the spinal cord you have nerve damage, and those sensors or neurons are damaged so that the spinal cord can no longer talk to these nerves down here. That communication is severed, which causes paralysis. Then you can't feel anything. You can't move them because your brain up here uses this spinal column as a message transportation device that goes to all of these different nerves. And when that's damaged, your brain can no longer talk to these nerves. So you can't move your muscles. You can't, move if you see your legs, you can't flex your toes. You don't feel anything because that pathway, that communication pathway is broken. So those are some things that I wanted you guys to know about the nervous system and the respiratory system. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am going to put this up to a discussion board. If you would please comment on there something that you thought was interesting from this video, maybe some questions you have for me about the nervous system or respiratory system, or really anything. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. I miss having you guys in class. I miss all of your questions. I know you're my rowdy class, but I do miss you, and hopefully you can come back in May. But please don't hesitate to ask me any questions on the discussion board. I'll be happy to answer them the best that I can. Thanks.